A pretty website that does not convert is just expensive art. I cannot stress enough, oversized images are responsible for about 80% of slow websites that I see. We live in a society where we are all always on our phones. 9 times out of 10, when we go to look at websites, it is happening on our phones versus on a desktop or laptop computer. Nothing screams unprofessional or this business might not even be operating anymore like a broken functionality on a website. Your navigation should be so intuitive that visitors don't even think about it. They just naturally are able to find what it is that they're looking for. Would you hire someone whose website says 2023 special offer and we're now in 2025 going into 26? Probably not. It just immediately is going to raise trust issues. Welcome to this week's episode of Tips Tuesday. Last week we talked about the 5 essential pages that your website absolutely needs. And this week we are going to be looking at conducting a website audit to identify the things that might be quietly driving potential clients away from your website. And let me tell you something, I see these mistakes all the time. There are websites that are absolutely stunning, beautiful websites. But here's the thing. A pretty website that does not convert is just expensive art. So let's take a look at what needs attention on your website. You can think of this as a sort of checkup for your website, just like you take your car in for maintenance. Your website needs regular checkups to make sure that everything is just working as it should. The difference between not checking on your website and not checking on your car is that a broken website will cost you money every single day that it is not fixed. Now, your car might leave you on the side of the road, so you want to get that checked too. But we're talking about websites today, okay? So let's dive right into the 7 mistakes or things that you are not paying attention to that absolutely need your attention because they may be costing you clients. So the first up on the list is going to be having a slow website. If your website takes more than 3 seconds to load every single time, it is potentially costing you clients because the truth is that 53% of all mobile visitors will abandon a website that takes longer than 3 seconds to load. They're just not going to wait around for your website to decide to come into view. They'll hit the back button and end up on a competitor's website instead. And another thing worth noting here is that Google actually ranks websites that are faster higher in search results. So that means that slow site speed doesn't just lose you visitors that you may already have, it will prevent you from having new people come and find your website, which means it minimizes the likelihood that you're getting new clients, right? So we don't want to just talk about the issues. We also want to talk about how can we fix those things. So let's dive into how can we fix a slow website. The first thing is you can't fix what you don't know. So you have to test your website speed to find out where you actually stand. You can use tools like Google PageSpeed Insights or GTmetrix, and both of those are free. Another thing that you can do is optimizing your images. And I will say that this is usually the biggest culprit in a slow website. Making sure that your website images, when you upload them, are the proper size and not these overly huge images that are causing your site to load super slow is super important. In addition to doing that, you can also use optimization plugins if you are on the WordPress platform that will do further compression of your images so that it minimizes the weight of loading your website. If you have the ability to enable caching on your website, then absolutely do that as well, as that is helpful in increasing the site speed of your site. And then if you are on the WordPress platform, while you can use a myriad of plugins, as many as you'd like, actually, I strongly recommend minimizing the number of plugins that you are using, and making sure that you are deactivating and deleting anything that you are not actively using, but also checking to make sure that the plugins that you have installed on your website don't have dual functionality. So you shouldn't have 2 or 3 social sharing plugins on your website, or you shouldn't have 2 or 3 caching plugins on your website, making sure that you find the one that works the best for your needs and getting rid of all others so that, again, you don't have all of that weight loading your site, okay? And then you may also need to look at upgrading your hosting. If you started out on the cheapest shared hosting plan just to get going, as you are growing, it may require an upgrade of hosting, and that could be that you just need to upgrade the plan that you're on through your current hosting company, but it may also mean that you need to switch over to a new hosting company. And I know that that can sound like a tedious and intimidating task, but quite honestly, if you have to move over to a new host, it's really not hard at all. Most hosts will migrate the site for you and even do it without any downtime. So you just pick out the new company that you want to go with, you sign up for hosting with that company, and then they'll arrange for a migration of your website. If you think about it like a physical location, they send out movers to pack up, pick up, and bring your stuff to your new location, essentially. And so all you have to do is pay for it. And then lastly, considering a CDN or a content delivery network, this is particularly useful for larger sites with lots of traffic, but I will say that I have recently had a couple clients who implemented the use of a CDN, and these aren't massive sites, they're smaller sites with a modest amount of traffic, and they also were able to see the benefits of having a content delivery network in place and also speed up their web loading speed. If you have to choose one of these to get started with, I will absolutely say start with the images. I cannot stress enough how much oversized images are responsible for about 80% of slow websites that I see. Making sure that your website is optimized with the images that you are using would be the best use of your time and money for a starting point. Next up on the list is going to be having a poor mobile website experience. And this just basically means that, like, if your website looks amazing on desktop, but then when you go to use it on a mobile device, it is a complete mess. The buttons are too small, the text is unreadable, images are not sized properly for a smaller screen device, or the navigation is impossible to use. This could absolutely be costing you clients. With over 60% of web traffic coming from mobile devices nowadays, if your site is not mobile friendly, you are essentially telling the majority of your potential clients that I just don't care about the experience that you have on my website. We live in a society where we are all always on our phones. 9 times out of 10, when we go to look at websites, it is happening on our phones versus on a desktop or laptop computer. And so here in the studio, we actually design all websites with what I call a mobile first priority, meaning that we are always thinking about the mobile experience first because that is where the majority of traffic is probably coming from. Also, it is worth mentioning that Google does use mobile first indexing, which means that it is primarily using the mobile version of your website when determining how to rank your website. So a bad mobile experience ultimately equals lower rankings, which also equals fewer visitors. You see where I'm going with that? So having a good mobile experience is going to be very important for your website. Again, talking about ways to fix it, the first thing is just knowing where you stand. You have to check your website on an actual phone. So don't just resize your browser window to simulate a mobile experience on the computer. That is something I do, like while I may be designing a website, I'm going back and forth and just looking at it on a resized window on my computer to simulate an actual mobile device. But at the point that I think I'm done, I actually load it on my phone. I actually always have my phone and tablet right here near so that when I am working on design, once I consider something complete, I can pull it up on multiple devices to test it and make sure that it is looking the way that I intend for it to look and have the experience that I intend for my site visitors to have or my client site visitors to have. Okay. The easiest way to make sure that this is the case is to use a responsive design. I will say that most modern themes and templates are responsive, but you do need to double check and make sure that that is the case with whatever templates you are using or purchasing. If you have had a template on your site for years, it is definitely worth investigating and making sure that it is something that is mobile friendly, because it is not something that has always been the case with all website templates and themes. Okay, so making sure that your buttons and links are large enough so that they can easily be tapped and accessed on a smaller device, ensuring that your text is readable without having to zoom. Nobody wants to be on the phone and doing all of this and moving stuff around to look at your website. Now, you will have some people who are, using their glasses and dropping them down and they have to do the zoom. But by and large, the majority of your site visitors should not have to go through those type of steps to actually be able to access your website. So you want to make sure that the text on your website, typically a minimum for site text, a good space to start is a 16 pixel font size for just like the regular body text on your site. And then you can scale up from that for like your header text and your larger text on the website. The pixel size of the font is also going to be dependent on what font you are using, because 16 pixels is not created equal across the board for all font typefaces. So if you change the typeface of your font, then you may also need to enlarge the size to make sure that it is still easily legible on a mobile device. Okay. Another thing to consider is that you should be testing out your navigation and any forms that you have on your website, making sure that they are collapsing and the fields in them where text needs to be entered is still easily accessible on a mobile device. If you are using, say, a contact form on your website for clients to make their first point of contact with you, but those forms are hard to fill out on their phone, they may just abandon and again go to a competitor's website, because looking at your website, it may feel like they don't really care about the user's experience. So making sure that you pay attention to these things is always going to be very important for the user experience overall. Okay. Next up on the list is having unclear messaging. When visitors are landing on your website, can they easily tell what it is that you do and who it is that you actually do it for? You need to make sure that when visitors land on the homepage of your website, they are not left in confusion about what it is that you do. Having messaging that is either vague or using too many buzzwords and jargon or tries to be too clever could absolutely be costing you clients. People make snap judgments, and if they can't figure out within 5 seconds or less whether you are the person that can help them with their problem, again, they are probably gone and on to the next. I want you to remember that your visitors are very busy. They are probably very distracted, and they are probably looking at your website while doing 3 other things. We are all always multitasking, and so you need to kind of make things immediately available and crystal clear about what it is that you do and who you do it for. So the way that you can fix this is, again, making sure that your website has a clear headline that states exactly what it is you do and who you serve in very simple language. If your 12-year-old cousin wouldn't understand it, then it's time to simplify it. Okay. You want to make sure that you are leading with the problems that you solve and not necessarily your process or credentials, because people don't care about that stuff immediately. That's like the afterthought once they have kind of got locked in already. So you want to make sure that you are telling them that you can solve their problem, and then they will maybe jump over to your about page to learn a little bit about the person that does this problem solving, right? Something that you can do is doing a mom test, so to speak. So showing your website to someone that's unfamiliar with your website. One of the reason that I call this the mom test is if you ask a mom, we typically are good about giving feedback. So asking someone like, hey, if you look at my website, can you explain to me what it is that you think I do? If they can't explain that to you quickly in say like 10 seconds, then you might need to look at the wording and the messaging that you have on your website, making sure to remove any type of buzzwords or jargon, thinking like synergize, leverage, solutions without context. Those all mean nothing to someone reading the words and web copy on your website. You want to be specific. You want to say, hey, I help small businesses get more clients through their websites. That's clear messaging versus just saying, I help small businesses. That's very vague. And it's like, okay, but what do you help small businesses do? So your homepage headline should answer the questions, what do you do and who do you do it for in one sentence? Next up on the list is having broken links and forms that are not functionable on your website. So links that absolutely go nowhere and serving up 404 pages, contact forms that don't actually send, or having buttons that don't work are probably costing you clients. Nothing screams unprofessional or this business might not even be operating anymore like a broken functionality on a website. If someone is ready to contact you or buy from you and your form doesn't work, they're probably not coming back to try again later. They're not going to look for a phone number to call you and let you know that your website doesn't work. They're not going to find you on social media to DM you. They are moving on to someone else who actually has a website that works. So you want to make sure that you are testing out your contact form, making sure that it's a smooth experience, that you get the confirmation message as the person submitting the form, and that the person who is running the site, whether it is you, an assistant, or a team member on your staff, is actually receiving the form that is submitted by your site users. Definitely testing that out monthly or anytime you are making changes on the site. You also want to make sure that you are going through the website and checking the links on the site to make sure that they actually go where you intend for them to go. Now, this can be a tedious process if you have to do them all one by one. I will say that if you are on the WordPress platform, there are plugins such as the Broken Link Checker plugin that allows you to search for all broken links on your site and easily go in to fix them or remove them. If using something like that type of plugin, it is the type of plugin that you only want to install, use it, and then deactivate it and delete it. Because again, having an unnecessary plugin like that is running processes in the back of your website can cause slower site speeds. So you want to use it while you need it and then remove it. And then if you come back to do it, say next quarter, reinstall the plugin, use it while you need it, and remove it again. Okay. Another thing is making sure that your links are functioning properly. So not only that they are going to the intended page that you want them to go to, but making sure that they function the way that links should function. Let me explain what I mean by that. Any links that are internal on your website and are just moving someone around, say, the building of your website, should open up in the same window in the same browser, okay? It should not be multiple tabs open from somebody having visited several pages on your website. So all internal links should be opening in the same browser window. All external links or links that you are linking to, say, another platform or another website, those are links that should be opening in separate windows so that the person can easily get back to your site, but also go to whatever site it is that you are recommending essentially when you link to that site. So not only is it important to make sure that the links go to where you intend for them to go, but it is equally important to make sure that they function as intended for internal and external linking. Okay. Another thing to do here to make sure that this is not something that is costing you clients is testing out all of your call to actions and buttons that are on your website and making sure that they do what they're supposed to do. Nothing worse than tapping a button on a website and nothing happens. It's the same with links. You want to check those and make sure that they're functional and that they are doing the same thing. Anything on your website opening up in the same browser window and anything on an external website opening up in a separate window, okay? And then you want to make sure that your notifications for any contact forms are properly configured so that people who are submitting the forms are getting their confirmations, and then your team is actually getting the submission of the form so that contact is being made. And lastly, testing things out on more than one browser. You can think Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Edge. You don't necessarily have to test it out for all browsers, but I will say that Chrome is a really popular one and Safari is a really popular one. So at minimum, checking those two experiences on your website for both desktop and mobile is going to be bare minimum, okay? And doing this quarterly is a good idea. Making sure that things, particularly your contact forms, because this is where people are using these forms to make contact and get in touch with you. At minimum, you want to make sure that you're testing out your contact forms quarterly. Okay. Technology changes, plugins update, things break. So just regularly testing out catches issues before clients actually run into them and abandon your website. Okay. Next up on our list is going to be having not so good navigation. So if your menu is confusing and important pages are buried 3 clicks deep and visitors can't easily figure out how to find what they are looking for, again, that is giving them reason to just piece you out and give you the deuces, okay? If they can't find the services, pricing, contact information, people are not going to take the time to keep hunting for it. They are not going to call you to get you on the phone. They will just leave. So again, this is one of those important things. Your navigation should be so intuitive that visitors don't even think about it. They just naturally are able to find what it is that they're looking for. And some of the things that you can make sure you do or have in place or fix to make sure that this is not an issue on your website is making sure that you keep your main menu simple, having no more than 5 to 7 items in your menu. Making sure that you're using clear labels in your menu items. So using something simple as services versus what we offer, or contact versus let's connect. This also makes it easy for search engines like Google to be able to distinguish what pages are what and what they are for, and also to index those pages to serve them up when people are looking for the thing that you offer, okay? Making sure that you put important pages in your header menu, so having your services, your about page, your contact page, those things should be easily accessible and able to find. When you think about it, you have your introduction on your home page. This is the thing that kind of like catches them and reels them in. But from there, they want to find out more about you. They want to find out more about your services. And then hopefully they want to get in contact with you. So those 3 pages are 3 important pages that should absolutely be easily accessible in your main menu. You can also consider adding a footer menu for some of those secondary pages like your privacy policy or your blog. If you have any like free resources and things like that, those can kind of go in any secondary menu areas instead of like the main menu, because again, you kind of want to think about the map of how you want people to move about your site, and essentially the way that you have it set up should guide them through that process. If you're sending them to your privacy policy before they even go to your about page, they may just disconnect and drop off. You want to keep them steadily engaged. And then those secondary pages are more for like people who are already regular visitors of your website or who have already decided that like this is the place that they want to be. Okay. And then having the ability to search on your website, typically up in the header is a good place to have that. So even if they can't easily find what they are looking for on the page that they are on, they have a place to go and search for it and get connected to it quickly. Okay. Using descriptive link text. So saying book a strategy call is better than saying click here. Again, that is very useful for indexing for search engines when you have text that is anchor text or the text that is linked that is very clear about what this link is doing. So having book a strategy call linked is better than saying you can click here to book a strategy call and click here being the only thing that you have linked. That is going to be confusing to a search engine, but it could also be confusing to a person that is actually on your website. Okay. And then always testing things out with fresh eyes is going to be your best bet whenever you are trying to see if things are functioning as you actually intend for them to function. Keeping in mind that you know your website inside out, but your visitors do not. So what may seem obvious to you might be confusing to them, and it is your responsibility to close and minimize that gap. Okay, moving on to the next thing on our list, we're going to say, so next up on our list is outdated content. So if your website has information on it from 2019, references to events that have already happened, old pricing that once they get in touch with you, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot to update my pricing, that actually has changed, or even outdated photos of you and your team, that could be costing you clients. There are certain things that build trust. Having accurate and up-to-date information is a trust-building activity for the overall experience on your website. So when you have old events on your website or you have old information and dates from 6, 7 years ago, then people may wonder if this business is still even active, are just not updating their website anymore. If you have old pricing and then they get in touch with you and you're like, oh yeah, the new pricing is actually this, they contacted you because the pricing that was there appealed to them. Now you are having to deliver information that the pricing is, in most cases, probably higher if you've changed your pricing. So that could be a red flag of like, oh, I don't know if I really trust this business or I want to work with them. Or now you might have outpriced yourself, like you might not be in their budget and they might not have reached out to you in the first place if you had your actual pricing there. So just minimizing that frustration for both yourself and your clients is going to be just an overall good practice, right? Would you hire someone whose website says 2023 special offer and we're now in 2025 going into 26? Probably not. It just immediately is going to raise trust issues. So the way that you can stay on top of this or fix it is to regularly do a content audit, going through the different pages on your website, looking at the dates, references, and making sure that time-sensitive information is updated regularly. Another one that people often miss and don't think about is updating the copyright date in your footer. If you started your business in 2005 and it says copyright 2005, again, that can make a person wonder, like, have they just been in business since 2005 or are they no longer in business? Did they stop updating this page in 2005? One thing you can do that can kind of actually build trust is having your copyright window. So like, say for instance, your business did start in 2005, you can have copyright 2005 through 2025 so that people know like, hey, this business has been around for 20 years. and it is updated and maintained, which is important, right? Something else that you can do is make sure that you are removing old content or updating old content, such as blog posts on your website. If you have evergreen material that is still relevant but was produced years ago, then it may be worth it to remove the date so that people don't see the actual published date of that content. And then that's not a factor that raises a question of if this content is valid anymore. So if you have content that doesn't regularly need to be refreshed on your website, then maybe just removing the date will make it so that it doesn't yield and create a trust question with your site visitors, okay? Making sure that you update your about page, making sure that your credentials are up to date, your team info and photos are current. There's nothing worse than going to a website, you see the person on there, and then say you jump on a Zoom call or you meet them in person, and you're not sure if this is the same person or not because they've changed so much. We change over the years in many different ways. And so making sure that you have up-to-date, at minimum up-to-date headshots on your website. If you are going to have images on your website, that they are up-to-date, that they are clear, crisp photos and not a cell phone photo that you took sitting in your car. Just making sure that, again, you're building trust and not creating doubt on the side of your visitors, okay? And then just like everything else, setting a reminder to maybe quarterly review your website for outdated content. When I say doing these things quarterly, I'm not saying that every single one of these things need to happen every single quarter, but maybe assigning a quarter for each of these things where you're doing them on a recurring kind of schedule. So maybe you check content in quarter one when things are a little bit slower, you're not getting as many inquiries, so you have a little bit more time to go through, read the content, update the content. But maybe making sure that your products, your pages, your pricing, and all of that, you definitely want to make sure that you're doing that, say, in Q3 before the boost of traffic that you usually get in Q4, right? And maybe those quarters are different for you. Like maybe Q2 is super, super busy for you. So then your Q1 responsibility should be making sure that your content on your pricing and about page and all of that is up to date so that you are prepared for that boost of traffic that you may be getting in Q2. So making sure that you just have these things on a schedule and not necessarily being overwhelmed by the idea that you should be doing every single one of these things every single quarter, okay? Because at the end of the day, if you've abandoned your content or haven't been updating your website, it leaves it to look like it has been neglected, which again creates trust issues between you and your audience. Okay? And then the last thing on the list today is going to be focusing on features instead of benefits. And what I mean by that is that your website is actually talking about what you do, so the features, instead of getting results, the benefits, which is what benefits your clients. If you are doing that and it's all about like your process, your credentials, your approach, and not actually solving your clients' problems, then you could potentially be costing yourself new clients. People don't buy features. People buy solutions to their problems and results that they will get from working with you. So if your website is reading like a resume or a technical manual instead of like a compelling story about transformation, then you are not connecting with what actually motivates people to hire you or buy from you in the first place. I will drop a link in the description box for you on a post that I wrote that further explains this whole features versus benefits concept to help you digest it a little bit more fully. I recommend checking that out. But also to fix these things, you want to make sure that you are looking to see if you are speaking to people's pain points. So if you are not even sure of what your client's pain points are, you need to kind of reverse engineer and get back to that. Why do people need to hire you? What is their problem that you... So once you start with the problem, you can figure out the features that you offer, which is, this is what I do. And then from there, you can figure out the benefit, which is, this is how that benefits you. So giving you an example, a feature might be, weekly check-in calls. But the benefit is you're never left wondering about your project status. Okay. So they are like, oh, I don't have to worry about where we're at in the project because I get weekly check-in calls. So the benefit is I'm not worried about my project status. The feature is I get the weekly check-in calls. Another example is saying the feature custom WordPress development, which means for you that your website works exactly how you need it to, and it's not a cookie cutter template. Now, again, the benefit is that the website works exactly as the client needs it to. And the reason that that happens, or the feature, is because there is custom WordPress development that is being offered. Okay, so you want to speak more in result-oriented language versus feature-specific language. Clients typically see 40% more inquiries beats out, we improve your online presence. You see what I mean? It's just wording, like you're saying essentially the same thing. You're taking a different route to get to the same place. So you want to tell stories of transformation, like a before and after. Initially, you're like, hey, on your homepage, you say, I help customers do X, Y, and Z, or I help solve X, Y, and Z problem, which is the transformation. And then you tell them about the benefits. So what's for them to lead to that transformation. And if you are having a hard time connecting between the features and the benefit, you can take your features and then follow it up with, okay, so what? Or what does that mean? Why does this matter? When you ask that question, the other side of that is the benefit. So what I would recommend is that you go through your services page and count how many times you talk about what you do versus the results that your clients get from working with you. And if it's not a balance of at least 50-50 in terms of features and benefits, then that tells you you've got a little bit of work to do. Okay, so let's talk about next steps, action steps, because this series is all about taking action and actually doing the work. Here's your homework and what you can do to audit your website. Okay, the first thing is testing your site speed using Google PageSpeed Insights, which is free and is also one of the more easier tools to use. I also mentioned GT Metrics, but I will say that the information that it provides is a little bit more on the techie side. If you are going to choose one or the other, I would definitely recommend starting with Google PageSpeed Insights and testing your site speed to see not only what your speed is, but then looking through it to see what the culprits are that are slowing your website down. Okay. The next thing is going to be checking the mobile experience. So pulling out your phone, going to your website, browsing around on your website, and making sure that it is a good mobile experience. The third thing is actually reading the copy that is on your homepage and seeing if it clearly explains what it is that you do and who you serve within the first 5 seconds. Making sure that that connection is an immediate connection. The fourth thing is going to be testing out your forms and links with a priority on the forms, particularly your contact form, because again, this is how people are making contact with you. But I do want to nudge you or slightly encourage you to try and take the time to get through all of the links on your website so that you can make sure that they are working as intended. Okay, and then clicking through the navigation, which is also part of checking out your links. This one probably is a higher priority than some of the other links on your website, and making sure that the navigation links not only work as you need them to go where they need to go, but again, that they are opening in the same browser window for internal links, which is all there should be in your menu. And then when you check your external links, making sure that they're opening in a separate browser. Okay. The sixth thing is looking at content and finding outdated content. Determining if you need to remove dates, if there are old references or photos on the website, getting rid of all of that stuff. Keeping in mind that if you do delete pages off of your site, that you are properly setting up redirects to, at minimum, the home page or other relevant content, so that those links that may already be out there are not serving up 404 errors on your website without sending them somewhere else on your site so that they can continue their journey on your website. And then lastly, reviewing your services page to check and see if you are talking about features or are you talking about benefits. Okay, now that was a pretty long list of things to do. You can pick your top 3 priorities and determine which of those 7 actually are your top 3 priority. Work on finding and fixing those first, and then moving on through the list as you have time. Don't let yourself not do anything because you think you have to tackle everything at once. Okay. If you are ever not sure about how to fix something that you found, you can always shoot us a message or get in contact on our website's contact form to get help with the things that you are working on your website. That is our jam. That's what we do in the studio. We can help you with auditing your websites, identifying any of the issues that may be costing you clients, fixing your technical problems, thinking speed, mobile responsiveness, broken functionality. We can help you with the messaging on your website. If you're ready to give your website a refresh, maybe it doesn't need a full website redesign, but you're ready to update the words, messaging, and copy that's on your website, we can absolutely help with that. And then also we are able to help you with redesigning your website when you're ready to refresh, okay? Until next week we'll be wrapping up our website series with Is Your Website Actually Working For You? And taking a strategic look at how to measure if your website is actually pulling its weight in your business and what you need to do if it's not. So until next time.